Chapter 19. And there came 2 angels to Sodom at even, and Lot sat in the gate of Sodom. And Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. And he said, Behold now, my lords, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and ye shall rise up early, and go on your ways. And they said, Nay, but we will abide in the street all night. And he pressed upon them greatly. And they turned in unto him, and entered into his house, and he made them a feast, and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. But before they lay down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round, both young and old, all the people from every quarter. And they called unto Lot, and said unto him, Where are the men which came into thee this night? Bring them out unto us, that we may know them. And Lot went out at the door unto them, and shut the door after him, and said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. Behold now, I have 2 daughters which have not known man. Let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and do ye to them as is good in your eyes. Only unto these men do nothing, for therefore came they under the shadow of my roof. And they said, Stand back. And they said again, This one fellow came in to sojourn, and he will needs be a judge. Now will we deal worse with thee than with them. And they pressed sore upon the man, even Lot, and came near to break the door. But the men put forth their hand, and pulled Lot into the house to them, and shut to the door. And they smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they wearied themselves to find the door. And the men said unto Lot, Hast thou here any besides, son-in-law, and thy sons, and thy daughters, and whatsoever thou hast in the city? Bring them out of this place. For we will destroy this place, because the cry of them is waxen great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord hath sent us to destroy it. And Lot went out, and spake unto his sons-in-law, which married his daughters, and said, Up, get you out of this place, for the Lord will destroy this city. But he seemed as one that mocked unto his sons-in-law. And when the morning arose, then the angels hastened Lot, saying, Arise, take thy wife, and thy 2 daughters, which are here, lest thou be consumed in the iniquity of the city. And while he lingered, the men laid upon his hand, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hand of his 2 daughters, the Lord being merciful unto them. And they brought him forth, and set him without the city. And it came to pass, when they had brought them forth abroad, that he said, Escape for thy life, look not behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain, escape to the mountain, lest thou be consumed. And Lot said unto them, Oh, not so, my lord. Behold now, thy servant hath found grace in thy sight, and thou hast magnified thy mercy, which thou hast shewed unto me in saving my life. And I cannot escape to the mountains, lest some evil take me, and I die. Behold now, the city is near to flee unto, and it is a little one. Oh, let me escape thither. Is it not a little one? And my soul shall live. And he said unto them, See, I have accepted thee concerning this thing also, that I will not overthrow this city, for the which thou hast spoken. Haste thee, escape thither, for I cannot do anything till thou be come hither. Therefore the name of the city was called Zoar. The sun was risen upon the earth when Lot entered into Zoar. Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew those cities, and all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the cities, and that which grew upon the ground. But the wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. And Abraham got up early in the morning to the place where he stood before the Lord. And he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah, and toward all the land of the plain, and beheld, and lo, the smoke of the country went up as the smoke of a furnace. And it came to pass, when God destroyed the cities of the plain, that God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, when he overthrew the cities in the which Lot dwelt. And Lot went up out of Zoar, and dwelt in the mountain, and his 2 daughters with him, for he feared to dwell in Zoar, and he dwelt in a cave, he and his 2 daughters. And the firstborn said unto the younger, Our father is old, and there is not a man in the earth to come in unto us after the manner of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night. And the firstborn went in, and lay with her father. And he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. And it came to pass on the morrow, that the firstborn said unto the younger, Behold, I lay yesternight with my father. Let us make him drink wine this night also. And go thou in, and lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night also. And the younger arose, and lay with him, and he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. Thus were both the daughters of Lot with child by their father. And the firstborn bare a son, and called his name Moab. The same is the father of the Moabites unto this day. And the younger, she also bare a son, and called his name Benammi. The same is the father of the children of Ammon unto this day. So we are recapping Genesis 19. So 2 angels came to Sodom. They saw Lot. Lot invited them to stay at his place. They said, no, we're going to hang out in the street. And Lot insisted, no, you need to come stay at our house. So he fixed a meal for them. And while these 2 angels, were in Lot's house, the men of the city surrounded Lot's house and demanded that these 2 men come out so they can have sex with him. Verse 5, the phrase, so that we may know them, this is an antiquated phrase for sexual activity. So they're saying that we may know them. This whole crowd of people, which I'm sure that's more than 5 people if it's a mob and they're surrounding a house, more than 5 people want to know these 2 men that are guests. Okay. So Lot comes out, tells them to stop being wicked, offers his 2 virgin daughters, and they say to Lot, you came to this land as a foreigner. Now you want to judge us? That's the mob's response to him giving them permission to have his 2 virgin daughters. They're saying, you used to be a foreigner. It's quite a response. So the crowd demanded the two strangers, the 2 angels, and they were so aggressive that they nearly broke Lot's door. In verse 10, the 2 angels pulled Lot into the home. They smote, or they inflicted blindness on the mob. And then they asked Lot, do you have any place to go? Any other place to go? Because your entire family needs to leave. The angels, we were sent here to destroy the city because the outcry is so great before the Lord that God sent us. Verse 14, Lot told Lot told his sons-in-law, or the men that were engaged, to the daughters, the 2 virgin daughters, they were engaged. He told them they needed to leave, but they didn't believe him. It says that seemed as one who mocked his sons-in-law. That was in verse 14. So the sons-in-law, the men engaged to Lot's virgin daughters, they didn't even believe Lot. So they didn't pack or anything. Verse 15, the angels told Lot to leave with their daughters, the wife, to avoid the destruction that is about to happen on the city. And then in verse 16, it says here they lingered. But the Lord was merciful. The angels again pulled Lot to safety, told them to go to the mountains and don't look back. Or if you look back, you will be consumed. Lot is grateful and he asks for mercy and he says, there's a nearby city of Zoar. Can we just go there and find safety? He didn't trust that he would be able to flee to the mountains and escape what was going to happen. He doesn't believe it. And the angels say, okay, you can go to Zoar, go to the nearby city, but you need to go ahead and do it because we can't start destroying the cities until you're safely there. So, as they're going to Zoar, they actually made it to Zoar, but Sodom and Gomorrah started to have destruction. It started to rain down fire and brimstone. And Lot's wife looked back and she was turned to a pillar of salt. Meanwhile, in verse 27, Abraham saw the result of this. He was seeing the smoke because he's in Mamre, but he's close enough to Sodom and Gomorrah where he's able to view the destruction and view the smoke coming up. So he's looking over there. And in verse 29, it says, God remembered Abraham and made sure Lot was safe. Once Lot saw what happened to his wife in this little city, and his wife turned to a pillar of salt, he decided to obey what the angels originally suggested. And he decided, well, we're just going to go ahead to those mountains now. I see why that was the original suggestion. So he went up there with his daughters and found a cave. The oldest daughter told the youngest daughter that their father was old and to preserve their lineage, they needed to get him drunk and both have sex with him or assault him while he was drunk. They both got pregnant and they both had sons, grandson, sons, and I'm not sure if that would be brother, uncle, or brother, cousins, but that's that lineage of Lot. So there's some additional thoughts that I have about this chapter. So when the two angels saw Lot and they were planning to stay in the streets, Lot insisted that they don't stay in the streets. This is because Lot had a clue that these men being in the streets all night would not be a good idea. And so there's some questions about Lot's character. Because in chapter 14, when Lot was kidnapped, Abraham impressed the king of Sodom. And Sodom is the territory that Lot lives in. So Abraham has those type of political connections where he has a good rapport with the king that Lot, the land that Lot lives in. Abraham has a good rapport with the king. Abraham has wealth. And Lot has a connection to him. So why does Lot live here in Sodom? He has other ways out, but he chooses to live here. In verse 9, when the angels came to his home, and he offers the mob his two virgin daughters, the way that they respond to him, I had to look at the New International Version to understand verse 9. And some of these translations, that's why they're so helpful, because they help provide clarity because of this Old English that it's written in. I'm using the King James Version, but that's because I have a book that is King James. Also, it's just tradition where I live and how I was raised. The default text is the King James Version. But in verse 9, Lot offers his daughters, and the crowd mocks him, and they say, you used to be a foreigner? You used to be a foreigner, now you're judging us? They saw the act of offering women as a joke or as something to be offended by. And they reminded Lot that he used to be foreign to this. You used to be foreign to this. Now you're going to try to give us these women? Another concern about Lot's integrity. Why would you be throwing your two virgin daughters to a group of sexually aggressive men? Why would that be your solution? In verse 9, it says the mob came near to break the door. So this mob was so sexually aggressive, they were willing to cause damage to his home to get these men. And Lot's solution is, let me give you my daughters, which they didn't even reject it. They just said, Lot, you used to be a foreigner too. You used to be foreign too. You used to be a guest too. This scenario of sexually aggressive males targeting other men, forcing that on people who are not receptive, that was what made the city evil. Forcing it, forcing people to accept it that are not receptive. The angels that were indoors were not receptive. A culture of male sexual aggression for other men does not value sex. The mob thought it was appropriate to go to Lot's house and demand that these strangers, these guests, the first time they're in the city, they thought that was appropriate to go to them and say, hey, come outside so we can have sex. And it wasn't just one on one. This is a mob of people on two men, a mob of men wanting to have sexual activity with two other men that are strangers. Sex that does not produce offspring becomes self serving. It becomes all about pleasure. It creates an unbalanced fixation and aggression. It creates unbalanced exploration because there is no offspring that comes out of it. So the feeling, the pleasure is what becomes the focal point of the activity. And sex was not created to be just about pleasure. It was supposed to reinforce the unit that two people become. And sex in this light does not reflect what it was originally created for. And it becomes obsessive, it becomes unbalanced, and it becomes really aggressive, where people who are not receptive are, people that are not receptive to this type of attitude, there's a conflict if you don't accept it. So that's what caused the destruction here. Another thing to note, a culture that encourages self-serving sex or sex centered around pleasure only, that culture doesn't value women or pregnancy. In verse 8, it's significant that Lot offered his two virgin daughters. And the mob, they didn't even acknowledge the daughters. They didn't even say, no, we don't want them. What they did was remind Lot, hey, you were a foreigner when you first came here too. You were a guest when you first came here too. Now you're judging us? This hints at Lot's integrity, because a man that is a happily married man to a woman, he wouldn't want to be in living like this if he has political connections to live elsewhere. And yes, they may not have been able to live in the same land as they were the first time, but both of these men, they have enough wealth and resources to not have to live here. So the fact that Lot lives here, it says something about who he must have been, what kind of man he must have been. For the crowd to react to him like that, and the crowd to remind him, you were a foreigner, you were once a guest here, that's their response. Another detail about, or another concern about Lot's integrity. His sons-in-laws didn't believe him, the men that are engaged to his daughters. So these men that are engaged to your daughters, that are trying to do everything they can to impress your daughters to be married to them, this is after the sexually aggressive men were almost going to break the door down. They had to be blinded to stop. And they didn't want to leave. There's also that question of integrity again, because after this mob of sexually aggressive men were trying to break the door down, why would you not want to leave? Why would you be lingering in verse 16? Lot and his entire family lingered after this. They lingered. So this says something about what they must have been used to. They also had to be people that were comfortable with this, or people that were used to this. If an out is given, if an escape is given, and they're lingering, they're not even running to take it. What kind of man had Lot had to be? Lot could not have been innocent. So the other thing, Lot and his family left. They went to Zoar, which is a nearby city. The angels told Lot to leave and to not look back. While Lot's wife looked back, and husband and wife are a unit. So telling Lot's wife was just as good as, or telling Lot was just as good as telling Lot's wife. They were both warned. Lot's wife looked back and turned to salt. They were warned by the angel not to look back, but they didn't tell them what would happen if you look back. A warning from God does not always outline a specific punishment. Disregarding the warning might lead to an incongruent outcome, or an outcome that doesn't seem to match the original action according to human standards, because again, we're not God. So to us, it may be incongruent, but since you don't create anything, you're not the creator. You don't get to determine that. But to me, when fire and brimstone was raining down on the city, it seems like if you disregarded what you were warned not to do, you would maybe burst out into flames, or maybe fire and brimstone would rain down on you. But no, Lot's wife was turned to a pillar of salt. So the last thing to note, integrity, or what kind of parent was Lot? Because now he offered his daughters to a group of sexually aggressive men to do with them as they please. He said, you can do anything to my virgin daughters. And they escaped sexual aggression just for both daughters to get him drunk and conceive children with him. And unknowing to him, he's assaulted by both of his daughters. So when I first read this as a child, I had a different take on Lot. I thought Lot was innocent. But you have to read everything to really understand. Lot had to be complicit somewhat to live somewhere like this. He had money. Abraham had money. Abraham had a good rapport with leaders of territories. He could have done something else, but he chose to live here in Sodom. And then even after the angels told him to leave, because they almost got attacked by a group of sexually aggressive men seeking men. And he stayed there? When I read this again and I saw what this actually said, I just have a very different take. And I am shocked that Lot had to be into that somewhat. So I thank you for watching and reading with me. I know this one was a little bit long. I am trying to get better at making things more concise, and I know adding an explanation isn't really helping me, but hey, I'm working on it. I am a work in progress. Thank the Lord. But thank you for taking the time to watch, and I hope you have a good day. And I'm going to do chapter 20 next.